we have the back and forth, whether you say the Democrats or Republicans or whoever. That's where we start having the conversations to discuss. If he wants to get rid of it, they start discussing why.
Yeah.
And then the people who want it to stay start discussing why it should stay and the things that it's doing,
Yes.
the things that it's done and the things that it's doing. But that's not happening. That's not happening in a lot of, they're talking about the Department of Veteran Affairs, U.S. Forest, all these different departments. So it's not like, oh, everybody in that department is worthless. People are just going to like the most extreme on every part of the conversation.
Right. And there are some departments that are not going to be completely gotten rid of, too. They're just making it more efficient.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. I'm sorry. That's the better way.
Just making it more efficient. Just because these departments that you see are listed doesn't necessarily mean all of them are going to go.
Correct.
There's going to be some changes, just like any other business. That will do their audit on a yearly basis just to make sure it's functioning well and money is coming in and not being overly spent in some areas. You have to do that if you're running a business, and in a sense, running this country
is a business.
It's a business. You're establishing relationships with other people, and you got money coming in, you got tax, you got to pay this, that, and the other. I mean, it's a business.
Well, you know what? But to your point, like, here's the thing. We were talking about this earlier as far as, I've never worked for the government.
Me either.
You always worked in private. So private and entrepreneurship over here. And then the thing is that most people don't work for the government. Most people are not government workers. So I think that, again, also with government workers, there is a huge appreciation for all our civil servants. Everybody's jumping to the worst extreme. But the reality is you're never guaranteed a job in the private sector. You're never guaranteed anything in the private sector. It is like you are subject to how the company's doing. You're subject to layoffs, downsizing, because that's how payroll is made. Now, in the federal government, what I think the problem is, and we talked about this earlier, even as far as state and local government, the problem is, I think, in the federal or government in general, government work, is that it's usually not subject to the same scrutiny as far as any downsizing or really looking at the efficiency of those positions. So many times you do have, and again, if I'm wrong, people can prove me wrong, but I think that's why we ended up having this Doge issue, is you have, in some cases, you do have some people who are employed who they're not evaluating the efficiency, and they're essentially, not that they're worthless, but they're doing a job that may not be as most efficient and working for a long time. Everybody knows in some cases in government jobs, it's like, yo, okay, you're going to work this government job. You're going to be there for 20, 30 years. You're going to retire, get your pensions. Cool. That's what everyday people want. You want security. You want your job. But when you step outside of the government space, all of us who work outside of that space understand that I can't just go for a company and just be there forever. That's some cases. But in a lot of cases, even if you're going to be there, you're going to have to make it through a lot of changes. And you're going to have to update your skill set. You may not be there. It's not as guaranteed. So I think that, again, I'm not saying that that's the lives of every government worker, but government allows for less, in my opinion, it allows for less oversight in that sense as far as efficiency.
Everybody looks for efficiency in their life, not just in the business, but even in your personal life. You look for something efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, efficiency is just a part of life. It's a part of business. Efficiency, yeah, why waste? You know what I mean? Why waste? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, I want things to be ran as efficient as possible. Honestly.
So here's the question. So this is where the argument comes in from the people who are annoyed and mad. It's hitting you personally. And if it were hitting us personally, well, what will we do? Now, I don't know what to say about that other than just to say what I think we would do. If it was hitting us personally as a couple, the life that I've lived so far, I would just kind of just deal with whatever's going to come. Because, again, I don't even know how to describe it. I think it's just that I haven't lived in a way where I've had any job or even as an entrepreneur, I never had nothing guaranteed to me. So I always knew it was something subject to, especially like I said, I can't say it enough. Things change in the private sector. The company that you work with 5 years ago, 10 years ago ain't the same company. Things change all the time. They get rid of departments because, like, let's say, for example, I'll just use private banking as an example. I worked in private banking when I was in my early 20s and up to 30s or early 30s. And man, there were departments that changed because the industry changed.
I mean, same here. I've been in healthcare, and I've worked with a number of companies that receive federal funding.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's been a lot of changes in Medicare, changes in Medicare where we have to, as therapists, now we're only going to get paid a certain amount of money if, the scores are going to be this or that. I mean, it changes in Medicare all the time. So then the organization itself has to also change to go with those regulations. And that's just one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that I've worked in a hospital that wasn't receiving a lot of business, but they had a lot of staff, and they had to go through the budget as well. A lot of people got fired, and and people got laid off. Some people got laid off. So there are changes that happen in the private sector for sure. That is kind of like what's going on like right now. Just to make, number one, things more efficient. Number two, to meet payroll, to meet the budget. Right now we are how many trillion in
the actual debt. Let's look at the actual debt right now. Right. So I think the total debt held by by the public is 30 trillion.
Okay.
So I think that's the total number.
I think he said it was close to 40. But yeah, anyway, being that far in debt.
But I don't want you to lose the point of, I wanted you to talk about being in the hospital. Yeah, I was just talking about how a lot of times there are layoffs in that sector in medical that people don't realize. And it's either because of, like you said, it could be issues with funding from federal, or it could be just issues with management in the hospital.
Yeah.
So just the point of it is, I'm just nailing down the point that people outside of the government who are people like yourself who work in medical face layoffs and things like that all the time too.
Well,
so it's just, I think people don't understand.
I'm thankful for the field that I'm in, because I don't think it would happen.
Yeah.
For me, because we're heavily needed in this area.
Well, that's the difference. That's the difference, right? There you go. And that's why I was saying that, right? So you're not getting spared of a layoff because just because.
No, it's never.
You're getting spared of a layoff because of what you just said. Right. You are needed. That's the reality. I'm not saying government workers who are getting laid off are not needed, but the question is, you're subject to that based on who's managing it. So that's all the point I was trying to make. So, you know what I mean?
No, that was a good point. That was a great point. Yeah, when there's a need, then it stays. If there's no need for it, then why waste?
Yeah, because if you're not needed, or someone deems that you're not needed, they can find something efficient to do it, you're done.
Right.
You're done. And that's.
Or maybe more than one person can do that task.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Multiple tasks that kind of fit in the same category. So they may just designate it to one person instead of 3 people.
I mean, it happens. I mean, like I said, in private, I've seen it all the time. I've seen it where departments, I used to work in a department at a investment bank, and there were 3 managers. And at one point they came in and got rid of 2 of the managers. That was right after 2009. Or right into 2009 after the financial collapse. They came in. There were 3 managers. I don't know what their salaries were, but they took them 3 managers and turned them into 1 manager, managing all those. They got rid of 2 salaries. And then I think they got rid of a couple of other managers above that manager. But that happens in the public sector. So the point is that, there is no, when you're outside of government, there is nobody having sympathy for the private workers. There's nobody marching. There's nobody saying, "Oh, that's so bad."
That's true.
It's just not seen. And again,
it happens more frequently in the private sector.
It happens, and the way people look at it is different because, like, for instance, when you laid off in the private sector, everybody performs a service to the public. So even just because you're a civil servant working in the government doesn't mean that the service that you provide in the private sector is invaluable. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you don't work for the government, but you provide a service to people who need it. So no one's going to come along and say, well, Faith got laid off, and we need nobody that doesn't know you is gonna go march and say, well, these particular workers are needed. Nah, it's just like, yo, whatever. You don't work for the government, so you're not seen like
For
that.
the next job.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Yeah, good luck, Godspeed on the next job.
Look for the next
So it's not a matter of people not caring about federal workers, but in my opinion, this has come into play because we've never had any administration really look into this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let me go into
See, if this was happening more frequently, like it should, honestly, this should be like a frequent thing that they do. I don't know, audit every 5 years or so. Maybe, I mean, every year. I don't know if that's too much, but there should be an audit more frequently.
well, here's the thing that I'm glad you said that because we're all learning, and like I said, I don't like to act like I know everything like a lot of other people online. Like they did have a government efficiency office. I forgot the exact title, but it was a government efficiency office that existed. The problem is that, to your point, I don't think they were doing real audits to understand what was going on in the government.
Yeah, because they missed it.